Hello, everybody. It's Jody Franklin here, and I'm here with my colleague and, dare I say, friend, Tami Hickman, who is a nurse practitioner who has been to four different functional medicine schools. And I know so many of you were asking about the different schools and the comparisons, and I thought I'd bring her on since she's been on so many schools. And my goal in this group is really to continue to provide you with resources to help you do this work and do it effectively. And it can be lonely out there. I know in the functional medicine world where people, you're a little bit of a deviant in your field. So we need more people doing this work effectively. And I hope that this group provides you with a lot of resources to help you do just that. But without further ado, I want to welcome you, Tami. Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm so glad you're doing this.
Thanks for having me, Jody.
Absolutely. So can you start out by giving us a little bit of background on what got you into functional medicine in the first place?
I think like everybody, we have a story, right? I mean, everybody has a story that brings you into functional medicine, whether it's you've fallen ill yourself, your kids, your spouse, a friend, somebody that you're trying to help, a patient that you just knew wasn't crazy. There's a story. And I've been a nurse since 1989. And in the allopathic world, everything from pre-hospital trauma life support to a Navy corpsman to RN, BSN, and worked my way through because I had a young family and was a single mom. And then I fell sick. I ended up with chronic Lyme disease, and I was pretty much told that I was crazy, that I needed, I was a drug seeker, which I didn't want any of that, that I needed to see a psychiatrist. And believe it or not, it was a hormone specialist that was a psychiatrist that told me that 80% of his depressed and people had hormone dysfunction. And so I kind of went down that rabbit hole. There were a lot of practitioners that even in the functional medicine realm that couldn't give me the help that I needed. And so I seemed to garner a little bit of information and education from each one that I saw. And by about 2012, 2013 is when I I guess it was 2012, 2013, I started into looking for education to see if I could do anything to help someone else. I found some answers, obviously it's chronic, so you continue to live with things, but I was bedridden, couldn't take care of my kids, couldn't take care of myself, worked online from home at the time when virtual working as a nurse just came into being. And I'm back to doing what I love to do and living life. So every step of the way has gotten me there. And I did it like a lot of people want to do. I start off with what I found and the information that I found. And I felt at the time that I couldn't jump in and do the expensive programs because I just couldn't afford it. And what I found out was I nickel and dime myself to death. And my grandma always told me, penny wise, pound foolish. So, but it all gave me a foundation. It gave me a great foundation, step by step, to do what I'm doing and to be where I'm at right now. So
that's wonderful. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and hit record. I feel bad I didn't do this already, but we are going to record this and send out the email to anybody who is on our email list. So I'll have Terry she's my assistant, I'll have her put in the notes below, in the comments below, the link to join our email list if you're not already on it, so you can get replays of interviews like this and other resources that I'm going to help provide for you. But what an amazing story, Tami. And I can't wait to hear about all your schooling and what the pros and cons of each program. And I just wanted to say, in full disclosure for all of you, in case you don't know, I am a teaching consultant and I'm on the leadership team for the School of Applied Functional Medicine. So I just wanted to be really upfront about that. But Tami has been to 4 programs, so I want her to tell you each one. And then, because I have no basis for comparison of all of them. But can you tell us, which program did you start on first?
The first one I started was the FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, who's led by Reed Davis. He's the one that developed the program. Great guy, a lot of awesome information that I did get there. I think at the time, the program cost me like $3,000, $3,200. That was back in, I can't remember, 2012-ish, 2013, somewhere in there, which was a lot of money for me at the time. It was a little more to the coaching line. One of the things that I found was it was very basic. I already had the underlying and the underpinning as a nurse. I was still an RN at the time. I hadn't finished my nurse practitioner because I had actually quit 2 or 3 times my NP program because I just could not think enough to even write a coherent paragraph. And I had been a writer before that. And so I had to quit my NP programs. So I started that. It gave me a lot of the meat and potatoes, but it didn't give me anything more than that. And I knew a lot of that underlying pathophysiology and, some of the light stuff prior to coming into the program. So I felt at the time that it wasn't enough for me. It's great for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that did FDN and absolutely loved it. But I do know for me in the education that I had at that point I had 4 degrees. I hadn't started on my MP yet and finished that. So there was certification in the American Natural Wellness Coaching Board. One of the things you were board eligible for at the time was the Guardian Ecclesiastic Medical Association, but really nothing that I could pertain to my nursing degree. So it was a good step at the time because I couldn't really think through anything else. But I geek out on this stuff. So I was really drawn to figuring out more. It just gave me more questions, led me to more. What do I need? Where should I go? What should I do? And then about 2014 is when I started FMU.
Okay, hold on though. I just have a couple questions about FDN.
Yeah.
So FDN now is definitely, I have friends who have done this program, and there is no prerequisite to go there. You can just be right out of high school and go there, correct? It's not like you have to be a medical professional to go.
No,
okay.
Not at the time. And from what I've seen recently, I don't believe so.
You don't have to be in the field at all. You don't have to. Mm-hmm. Okay. And from what I also understand is they give you resources like kind of flip charts and like a lot of reference material to go through. So if patient X has this or client X has this, then you do this. Am I summarizing it correctly? Is that your experience?
It was like an algorithm. Yeah, like an if then do this.
Okay.
And it was not, I found with my patient population, my clients, that a lot of times everybody was outside those norms, and that's kind of where we are with functional medicine anyway. Where do people lie outside the norm? So
yeah, I'm finding there's a lot of outliers with that. So it might be a good place if you don't have a medical degree and you want to get some basic knowledge, would you say? Okay.
Right.
And I'm also wondering, just so all of you know, if any of you want to go ahead and type in your questions about that program, about any of the programs below right now, that would be helpful so I can ask them as we're going along to Tami. So she's such a great resource for this. It's awesome that she's doing this. Okay, so Tami, so go ahead and tell us about the next one, the FMU.
So FMU, I started FMU. Developer was Ron Grzanci, really knowledgeable. I still get some emails and some updates and different resources from FMU. It was originally developed for chiropractors. Right now, they accept most licensed professionals. You don't get a certification unless you're licensed. So you can have you can be unlicensed and still go. You just don't get the certification. Okay. Unlike FDN, where you can have the certification even if you're not a licensed professional at the time. They have a great advisory board. Some people that I've done continuing education with, places that I've gone for conferences, some really, really awesome people on that advisory board, a lot of really good information. I think what they've since, they didn't have, at the time I was an RN when I went, and I didn't finish that program. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but there were no certifications at the time for RNs. The CEUs were only approved for California at the time, and I think they still are only approved for California. They do have continuing education credits, the AMA PRA 1, Category 1, but it's only 12 CEUs now, which is still a good amount. But one of the things that you find with CEUs are it's extremely expensive to obtain. So when you look at programs and you see a lot of CEUs and you also see a higher price on those programs, it often is in direct relationship to the people who have to obtain those CEUs. And it's very difficult. I don't think people really understand unless you've been one of the ones to try and figure out for a program or a conference how to obtain those CEUs. So very costly. Like the program, it was a lot more meat and potatoes than what FDN was for sure. One of the reasons why I stopped the program was because the employer that I was employed with at the time, the gold standard was IFM. And they said, we won't accept it. We want you to go to IFM. And at the time, when you only have a limited amount of time to study, you do one or the other. So when your employer says, nope, we want this, that's where I jumped. So they do offer certification. They prefer that you have a doctorate, but they do allow nutritionists and nurse practitioners to have that certification as well. And several others, I think like RDNs and physical therapists, chiropractors, to obtain certification and sit for that board. I think in that one too, that you're eligible for 300 hours to sit for the diplomat in clinical nutrition. But I don't know how many hours you have to have for that. But I did find as I went along, there were still some like algorithms, if this, then this. They did teach you how to think through a situation a lot better than what FDN did for sure. Love that program too. So, if depends on what you're doing. And this is what I tell everybody. There's no one program that fits everybody or everything, right? Where are you starting? What level of education do you have to begin with? And, what are your goals? What are you looking to get out of this? And if depending on your goals will depend on what program is best suited for you. I will say again, I found that every time I put a little chunk of money down, $3,000 here and $3,000 there and another $3,000 here, I went, ooh, I probably could have done this one instead and just had it all done.
So I want to hear which one that is.
We'll get there.
Okay. So and so many people have asked on the thread when I announced that you were going to come on, why did she do 4 of them? Why ever? And I think we're always students of functional medicine. I think there's just so much always coming out about it. So it doesn't surprise me that you've done 4, and you're not the only one I know who's done 4 different programs,
Yeah.
but go ahead and tell us about your experience with IFM then.
So with IFM, like I said, that was the gold standard for me. At the time, my physician wanted it. Everybody was talking it up. And that was 2015, I think, is when I started that. Started off with the I can't even remember now.
AFMPC.
AFMPC. There's too many letters in that acronym.
Sure.
But started off with that. That was required of my position at the time. I was a health coach. I was an geneticist, worked with nutrition and clinical research for a local integrative medical group that also was part of a very large health corporation in my area. And so they said, nope, we want you to come here. With IFM, a lot of information, great information as well, just like everywhere else. Great people teaching the programs before that. And then since then I've been at many conferences and continuing education programs where people from IFN that taught in IFM also have taught at those conferences, or, you get to know them at conferences. Great place to be with IFM. The only problem that I had, I left that employer about 2 years after I started. And of course, when I left, they refused to pay for the program. And at the time, I just didn't have the $20,000 to plunk out and say, okay, I'm going to do this and just jump both feet first. I did the initial program. I did the GI module. I did the pediatric module. And when I looked back at it, I haven't seen the pediatric module again. So I don't know if it's even still there. Maybe it is, and I just didn't find it. But they were great programs. Each one of them cost a chunk of money. So like the first one cost me, right now, the AFMCP is like $29.50. And it was a little bit less than that, but not much. And the advanced modules are $1,900 a piece, and there are several of those. And then when you go, I have several friends and colleagues that continue to work in that practice in other places that have completely finished IFM. So you have that $800 out for case report, your written exam you have to pay for, and then every 10 years you have to be recertified in that exam. They now have some clinical skills training, which is like $1,400, your annual conferences, your annual memberships. So it's a good chunk of money if you don't have an employer that pays for it, or you don't have a lot of CMEs. I know for me as an MP, I don't think I've ever had more than $2,000 a year to be able to use towards CME. So that was a concern for me going forward with IFM. They have a great toolkit, a lot of resources. One of the things I don't know, and I should have asked one of my friends, is do they have a forum? FMU has a forum, FDN has a student forum, they have alumni forums. And I have to believe that IFM does, but I don't ever remember seeing it or being involved or talking to anyone about it.
I think there's an unofficial one, but not official with the school. So
yeah.
But so, and SAFM, of course, has a forum as well, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course. And go ahead.
FMU, IFM are accredited. And then by the same corporation and company, we'll talk about that a little bit more when I finish up with the last one that I've attended after the questions, kind of what that means and what we're looking at.
Absolutely. So I guess, what would you say before we get into the SAFM experience, what would you say of those three that you have attended? Was there anything missing that you felt like they could have had that they didn't for each one?
I think there are two major things that were missing for me. One was community. And when I say community, I mean initial, upfront, kind of wrapping your arms around somebody and saying, we'll get through this together. Let's have accountability partners. Let's have a group where we come together every couple of weeks and really hash out what's going on in the program at the time, what feelings we have, what troubles we have, where maybe we're having difficulty with a client or a patient, or just even thought process. So that was missing big time from everyone that I, was a part of it. Maybe it was because I didn't feel that community. It's not necessarily that there's not a community, but for me personally, I didn't have that community in those places because I didn't feel connected.
Okay. And then you went on to SAFM.
I did.
So what made you decide to start SAFM?
I actually joined this Facebook group.
Oh, wow.
I joined this Facebook group and I had never heard of SAFM. Like I said, IFM was always talked about. It was the gold standard. FMU had been talked about in several circles, but SAFM at the time hadn't. And this is, I think 2019 is when I first heard about it. And it took me about 8 months to pull the trigger because a lot of times I jumped both feet first and I was a little gun shy. I had spent so much money on several different other programs. And so I talked to several people in the background about SAFM, what they thought, where did this go? And that's why I enjoy jumping in and telling people about it, is because that's what helped me find SAFM. And that's where I started with it.
Okay. And what did you find was the big differentiator for SAFM versus some of the others?
I really liked, so IFM at the time was not online. And you had to travel to all the different conferences to be able to do each module. That was really difficult for me because I couldn't get time off work and I couldn't, afford to travel on top of, the actual modules. So that's changed a little bit. But with SAFM, I felt like, we had all of the modules and the different classes, they're all online, but each one that Tracy puts together is so meaty to the point where typically I would let those classes run in the background as I do something else. I'm constantly multitasking. Maybe I have ADHD. I don't know. Probably just not diagnosed.
So there's a functional medicine solution for that. So.
Yes, there is. So I'm always doing 2 or 3 things at one time, right? And with SAFM, I couldn't do it. There's so much meat and so many pearls in this that I'm constantly writing, constantly typing, constantly figuring out all these little nuances to things. And what's really cool is, you get all this information on the big screen and, you go to the conferences and people talk about it, but then you come home and it's like, what do you do with this? Where do you put it into practice? How do you apply it? And I would apply it just, with my thought process and things that I, knew from before. But this showed me different interconnectivity. So there's an interconnectedness to everything. It's not siloed into systems. It's not, it's really looking at the body as a whole from a biochemical perspective. And I absolutely, I'm a genetics geek anyway. So I really, really absolutely love that piece of what Tracy does for it. The information that she gives, the background that she has, it's just so rich in detail, and so many things that you can take and just use right away. There's a lot of, there's nothing other to say than it's extremely meaty. It's a lot of information, a lot more. I feel that it's a lot more applicable for me than any other program that I've had. Not that any other program didn't give me all that, but in a way that I could understand it, and to be able to go back and look at it over again and go through the different systems again and see where that's going. That's one of the main differences. The other main difference for me is the community. My huddle groups, and I'm not going to lie, my first huddle group in my 101, I didn't attend much. There was a lot going on with my mom. She was going through hospice. We were just putting her in hospice and whatnot. But when I hit 202, the huddle group was absolutely what I needed. And I really needed it the first time around. I don't think I had the bandwidth in my head to do it. But then when, my world kind of opened up, it's just like, I was ready to really hit the road running with it. And it's so much community. There's so much networking within that huddle group. The huddle groups every couple of weeks for the first few months of the program. Do you know how that's going to continue with the?
Yes, in fact, they're going to be called mastermind tribes from now on. It's huddle groups. If anyone's wondering what's a huddle group, that's what that is. But they will be continuing for sure. The program has changed a little bit in that it's one program, but there are still 2 semesters. But they're adding a clinical skills intersemester program, which will teach people how to either use what you're learning in a managed care setting where you're working with a patient maybe 15 minutes and you're in an typical insurance model. And they'll also teach you within a group model. So I'm in my own practice starting to do more groups, as you're aware, where I specialize in a lot of autoimmune skin issues, and we're doing a vanishing vitiligo program. So you're going to learn how to do it within a group setting. And you'll also learn the longer session, one-on-one, more typical cash pay model where people are spending a good hour with a patient or client. So that's all being added to the program. Now, I know that one thing that you had said to me before also is just, you mentioned about really putting it all together, but the application piece I think was huge for you in that there were so many options to participate in case studies. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So there are so many ways to participate in case studies. And there are constant case studies that you can hear how a student actually has worked up a patient. And then there's some interplay with Tracy on figuring out, where the interconnectedness is with this patient or client. There's a lot of that. And I absolutely love that because I think this repetition of seeing different types of clients come in and seeing how they differ, because we're not a cookie cutter. This is an individualized type of medicine. It's an individualized type of healthcare. And that's why it's so different than the allopathic model. Not everybody that comes in with high cholesterol gets a statin, right? But what's actually happening in the background with that patient that has that elevated cholesterol, what's really happening with them at the root level. And so everybody's different. And so when you keep going through constant case studies, you see a pattern emerge with certain people. And it's just repetition and it's constant learning. And so that's really important too. You also have the opportunity to present a case study, which is really awesome. You can sign up for it. You can then present that case study with a client maybe you're having difficulty with, or somebody that you're starting out with and you're not sure where to go to begin with. That's great. And you can also do that in your mastermind too. You can present that and have people talk about it and really work it up. So there are a lot of different ways to find this extra case study and extra help in the thought process. It's not just extra help with this particular patient, it's the thought process, right? So you can apply it to another client down the line. And that is extremely helpful.
Yeah. A lot of the students really appreciate that. And you can even meet one-on-one with a teaching consultant to help you for 50 minutes to go through a case with you. And that's a little bit of an additional charge, but not much at all. I'm curious, Lisa wants to know if your employer would not have required IFM, would you have finished FMU? But you could say based on what you know now.
Sure. I would have. I really would have at the time, just like I did the FDN. It would have been important to finish that, I think.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I guess a big question is, if you were to recommend a program out of all the programs you attended, what would you recommend?
My favorite.
Oh, I think I just muted you. Can you unmute?
There we go.
That was a cliffhanger. Sorry, you're not going to hear what you know. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Meet us at the net after the pilot, right?
Right.
Oh,
So go
shoot.
ahead. What,
Um,
go ahead and say which one you would recommend and why. And
so for me, hands down, I really feel that SAFM was the right choice for me. I align with the program's vision, the passion, the mission, on top of the education. So it's not only what I've learned, but a gut feeling that I've had through the program itself. So I have this kind of deep soul love for the vision, right? She's trying to teach not only, the one-on-one, but how do we help every person that walks in the door when you work in an urgent care, or you work in an OC health clinic, or you work in a family medicine clinic, or you work in cardiac clinic, you work in an ICU somewhere, you're a hospitalist. Where can we use this, and how can we change medicine as practitioners? Where do we go from here? I will say the other thing that has been amazing to me, I started my health coaching back in 2014. I started my functional medicine clinic in 2018. And last fall, when I finally said, I'm doing 202, nothing's going to stop me at this point, my business has exploded. It's maybe a mindset. So that's another thing that SAFM gave me the confidence to really work with people. And I've been an NP now for 5 years. So I have the confidence to work with people. I've been a nurse for over 30, but in this functional medicine realm, what was it that was keeping me back? Was it knowledge? Quite possibly could have been. I didn't have the application and figure out the knowledge. Was it confidence in myself? Absolutely. Probably was some of that. Could I really bring it for somebody who was really a tough case? But since November, it's been unbelievable. I've gotten rid of my side hustles at this point. Finally, this summer, I've got a couple different things that I'm doing that I absolutely love, and I still haven't finished SAFM. I'm still in that 202 semester, and I'm finishing up and wrapping up. I can wrap up, by the first of the year, but I may be sooner than that. So for me, the other thing that was really important for me at the time when I signed up was just when SAFM was offering CEUs and CMEs. There again, AMA, PROCAT 1, but they're 50 per semester once you finish your testing. So that's 100 CEUs. And if you really have ever been on a board that sat for any conferences to offer these CEUs or any programs, it's extremely difficult to get that many. You have to meet mainstream medical education guidelines to be able to have these accredited CEUs. And so you have to be able to deliver safe, effective, cost-effective, compassionate care based on practice and development. And so that's another piece. She can offer 100 credits for the whole program. That's amazing to me.
And not to mention for the price of the program too. I think that's a big benefit. But what you said earlier about having the confidence, I remember around halfway through my second semester as well saying, wow, I really have this. I feel like I can help just about anybody with anything. And that was just an amazing realization. And I had a similar experience in being able to quit my job after my first semester and do this more full time. And just by the end of my second semester, I had nearly a full practice. And it's not unusual for so many of us in this program because your confidence just soars and it comes across to your patients and clients. They know that you know your stuff and they can't wait to work with you. So I just love the whole methodology, and I can't speak to some of the other programs, but it's all great that there are so many options out there, and you have to do what you're comfortable with. what I found is that everyone I know who's done SAFM has said that they absolutely love it. I don't think there's anything out there that better prepares you to use it in your practice effectively. But Tracy herself went to IFM and was very appreciative of her education there. Tracy Harrison's the founder and lead educator of SAFM, and she's a scientist by background, in fact, and has 3 degrees from MIT. And she really researches and researches like crazy. So all the information is current. There's great resources in the school, including curated research that she does she'll read hundreds of research papers for each class and then narrow it down to the really most poignant pieces that she feels are important for you to have and read and share with your patients. So it's great that that's there. The forum's wonderful. I always feel like it's so responsive, where you can go in and type in a question and get an answer, or get clarification on a patient case that you're working on pretty quickly. And there's about half a dozen or so monitors in there answering your questions that are graduates of SAFM or advanced students there too. So I just find the resources to be really good. Now, maybe you could talk about any other differentiators that you can think of that you could say between the programs, and which maybe, I don't know, maybe other differentiators that you can think of, and I'll look and see if there are any other questions.
Sure. I think one differentiation, I know several of the programs give you a time frame to finish, but she tightens up the time frame a little bit. And for me, I'm a procrastinator by nature. And so sometimes I have to, put deadlines on myself, and it's really difficult to do that. But when I have a few deadlines that I know that I have to do before I can, really move on to do something else, and not spend the next 5 or 6 years, 10 years finishing a program, that's really important for me too. I need that extra little push sometimes because everything else gets in the way.
For sure. So I found a couple questions. One is that, can you please speak to the quality of the courses and faculty from the different schools from a knowledge-based standpoint, and which is best and why, and which isn't so good?
Well, I'm going to have some professional respect here too, in the fact that I'm not going to say that any program isn't quality. I mean, that's up to the beholder, right? I will say I've had experience with a lot of the advisory board with FMU as well as SAFM. There's a lot of research-based curricula that does come from evidence-based practice for both of them. I do find that there really is more that I know of. The programs have changed since I've started them, so I don't know how they've changed, who's changed, why they've changed. So just based on where I came from with it, I will say that what I've experienced at SAFM, there is a lot more knowledge base as far as PubMed research, NIH white papers that come through that are the underpinning for everything that's suggested. So even when you go through your different modules, based all the recommendations and all the way of putting the pieces together is knitted together by research, is knitted together by evidence-based practice. So I routinely use that, and I use it for some of my learning clients. My clients who are nurses, my clients who are researched, maybe they're pharmacists. I have one right now that's a pharmacist, and she's like, give me all you can give me. I want to, read about this for my son. I need to devour whatever you can give me. And so I do. And she comes back with questions, and we work as a team. And this this has also helped cemented with my clients, really giving them the rough information and saying, okay, this is where I'm finding it. This is why I think this suggestion, is important for you. And it's evidence-based. So
That's
I know
wonderful.
that's a roundabout way of answering the question, but it's like, that's a hard question to really ask and put out there, because for everybody it's different.
Right, for sure. There's a follow-up question on that. Which, I think you kind of touched on this before, but which of them gives the best support from a practical standpoint? That is, which one best prepares one to be able to start a successful practice? Does any one provide ongoing support for practitioners, like forums for alumni?
Yeah.
So I think you covered some of that, but go ahead.
I think they all do. They all have forums for alumni. They all have ongoing support in various ways. Again, I don't know how that's changed for all of them. I do know with SAFM, there's incubator programs. There's, oh gosh, what's that one after you graduate? Can't remember what it's called.
At
For
SAFM?
Mm-hmm.
It is the practitioner incubator at
Okay.
SAFM, right? So you can continue your education. And what I like about it is, I know you mentioned fees and test fees and continuing education fees. Once you're recertified at SAFM, I can speak from SAFM perspective anyway, you don't pay anything else ever for the rest of your life as long as you stay certified. So you get access to a class every month. You're going to get one of those calls where a classmate will present a case study. You're going to get all the forum. There's a database where of over 1,000 entries where you can type in something, a keyword like migraines or acid reflux, type in something and get answers. So you get answers to questions previously asked by students on a case that they're working on. So you always feel very prepared, at least from that perspective. And you get access to that. You get access to all your course materials and everything basically for life. And I love that she's updating the courses continuously too. So there's really no course that's more than 2 or 3 years old, because it's always being done again. And then there's tons of live courses. And what I was going to say is Tracy herself went to IFM and loved the education she received there, but she felt like when she got out, she wanted to really use what she was learning in her practice. And she felt like she didn't have all the knowledge to do that. So she did tens of thousands of hours of her own research, did continuous education. And the reason it's called the School of Applied Functional Medicine is because it really teaches you how to competently and confidently apply it to your practice. So one of the things that I've done in my practice recently is leveraged myself, where I have so many people coming to me and a wait list to work with me that I've actually hired some practitioners, graduates of SAFM, including advanced students like Tami. So she's now on my staff. I snatched her up. And so some of my client load I'm passing off to her. So she has her own practice and also has some of my clients as well, which is great. And I really appreciate that. Let me see if there are any other questions, but I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to ask. Let's see.
I know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's one other thing. I think there was a question that I was looking on the Facebook page was about business. Are there business courses? Well, that interim semester is kind of like a business course, teaching you the different ways of working with the different types of clients. However, I would caution everybody that when you look at a program, you want them to be good at what they do, right? So when you look at a functional medicine program, don't look at it for how they're going to teach you how to set up your business. You want to look at a business coach to do that, or another person who is successful in business to teach you how to set up your business. I have, as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, and I never made this connection till after the fact, but Dr. Glad, who is the medical director of SAFM, sat down with me. He lives in my area, and I contacted him, and for a very small fee at the time, he sat down with me and taught me what a micro practice needs to be and how to. He's not a business coach. He's not, that's not what he does for a living. He is a physician in integrative and functional medicine. But because I was very close with his nurse practitioner, he said, I'll sit down with you and you some tips and some pointers on about how to handle a micro practice. But I suggest that you seek somebody else out as well to teach you how to solidify your business, whether it be an accountant, a bookkeeper, all in their own specialties, and leave your functional medicine training to somebody who's teaching you functional medicine. But the business side of running a practice, look to those people who specialize in actual running a business.
For sure. And just so you know, it's not the clinical skills intro semester is not a business program. It's more of a teaching you how to use functional medicine in your practice and with whatever way you're doing it. So there are no, it's not a business school. And I don't think any of the ones that you spoke of really teach that end of it, but kind of through osmosis with SAFM, I sort of picked up, just word of mouth. My practice just started building organically.
Mm-hmm.
But there are resources, at least that I could speak to SAFM. I don't know if you want to speak to any of the other schools. Like, for example, there's 5 Practice Pearls webinars. One's done by a nurse practitioner, one by a pharmacist, and one's done by a health coach, and one's done by Tracy herself. Talking about how they've used functional medicine in their practice, the things that they did to establish their business. Tracy talks about how she built her business the first year. So those were really helpful as bonus classes. And then to your point, with those mastermind groups, you can talk about business and get support there.
That's been unbelievable as far as talking just with other people within your masterminds, within your networking community. And that's probably one of the better ways to really do that. And everybody has their tips on what they didn't do well and what they've done well, what's really worked, what hasn't worked, how to go about this or that. And just having those people to talk to really, really does help.
Definitely. I just wanted to mention Dr. Glad is one of the doctors or practitioners on the medical review board for SAFM. He's not the director, but he's on the medical. Yeah, no, that's okay. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. Okay, so if you appreciated Tami, give us some hearts and thumbs up. And if you want to see some additional speakers that we're having on, I'm planning on bringing on some other people to help support you with your business. Maybe we'll try to get some other schools on here to talk about the different programs out there. If you appreciate this, just give us your support and make sure to join our email list. Terry can put the link to join our email list in the link below, and we will send a replay of this interview at that time. Oh, thanks. You're getting a lot of love, Tami. And if you have any additional questions, if you want to type them below here, Tami is in the group. As you know, that's how she heard about some of the different, or SAFM anyway. And she can answer, I'm sure she wouldn't mind answering some questions for you. She's lovely, and appreciate having her in our practice. And just to give you all some inspiration, one of our clients, I do the initial session with Tami, and then she takes the follow-up sessions with the client. And one of them came to us recently with stage 4 liver failure. And we actually, I posted about it in this group, but within it, she was up for a transplant. And within 2 months, she is now off the transplant list. And so we saved her from having a liver transplant. So Tami's done pretty incredible work with that client. And I'm really impressed with the work you've done with her. And I know you could talk about so many other success stories in functional medicine, but those of you who are on the wings thinking, do I want to get into this line of work? You'll never look back. It is just so incredibly rewarding helping people reverse chronic illnesses. And we see it day after day, and it's like miracles happen that we think nothing of. It's just, it's science. It's not just a miracle, but it's just miraculous, some of the results that we've seen. So please do pursue this work. We need more practitioners doing this work. But any parting words, Tami? I'm going to see if there's any more questions while you're going.
No, just thank you for having me, and hopefully I was able to help someone out there. I know there have been a lot of questions and back and forth, so hopefully this gives you some extra information.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Have a good
Thank
night.
you,
Thanks,
Jody.
Tami. Bye-bye.